cow's milk protein allergy is one of the most common allergens. Most common form in babies is the non-IgE one. The non-IgE kind, you know that in the beginning the symptoms are quite hectic. It can be anything from sleepless nights, a very unhappy baby, to the point where Sammy actually had to stop breastfeeding. The good news for Sammy and little Kyla is that these babies generally outgrow their cow's milk protein allergy. That's a good place to start introducing the cow's milk protein to her, is in a form of a formula. We call it a hydrolyzed milk protein. So it's still broken down, but it does come from milk proteins. So we always will want to edge forward and move forward, but we're also happy to stop and just pause if we noticed that we were going a bit too fast or it was changing the way she was behaving.
Milk feeds, and that was quite a tough one. We're sitting with the question of needing to look at reintroducing dairy and trying to challenge her. So we're kind of now sitting with that big question of how do we actually start this?
Everyone, welcome back to Let's Talk Baby. I'm Kath Megaw. I'm a paediatric dietitian, and I'm joined by Sammy, who's a paediatric feeding therapist. Hi, Sammy.
Hi, Kath. Nice to be here again.
Wow, always lovely. And today we get to discuss a topic very close to your heart. For those of you who haven't watched in a while or haven't watched from the beginning, maybe have missed that we've been following Sammy and her little one, Kyla, on Kyla's weaning journey. So you can go back and go and find all the podcasts on weaning your baby, how to wean, when to wean, what utensils to use, what cups to use, and we really covered a whole range of topics. And one of them we have spoken about briefly is allergens. And today we're going to talk a little bit more about it, more specifically cow's milk protein allergy, because cow's milk protein allergy is one of the most common allergens that your baby will have. You get two types of cow's milk protein allergy. You get the non-IgE mediated one, which is more clinical. So there are a lot of symptoms, but you can't pick it up in the blood. And then you get the IgE, which means you can pick it up in a blood test. And that is another form of cow's milk protein allergy. The most common form in babies is the non-IgE one. The good news, and the good news for Sammy and little Kyla, is that these babies generally outgrow their cow's milk protein allergy between 9 and 12 months of age, sometimes going on a bit longer, but normally around that age, we can start, hoping that they will fully outgrow this. But at some points in the journey, we need to start challenging the little ones on that. So, Sammy, at this point, just remind us how old Kyla is and where are you guys on this weaning journey that we've been following? Just a recap for all of us.
Oh, Kath, I smile when you said that they tend to outgrow it between 9 and 12 months. I'm like, I can see the light. There's hope. So no, Kyla is 7 months old now, and she is a energetic and thriving little girl. She's meeting her milestones beautifully, and even though our journey in the beginning with regards to feeding, not so much solids, but milk feeds, and that was quite a tough one, and the listeners can go back and, like you said, we've covered it all in other podcasts, but she's actually taken to solids beautifully and absolutely loves her food, and she's eating a variety of fruit and veg and starch and proteins, and then of course, because of her cow's milk protein allergy, we haven't introduced any cow's milk or dairy, as well as soy, because we know of the possibility of cross reactivity there, and so now, like you say, Kath, we're sitting with the question of needing to. So there goes Kyla in the background. Needing to look at reintroducing dairy and trying to challenge her. So we're kind of now sitting with that big question of how do we actually start this? And to be honest, both Matt and I are feeling quite daunted because we've gotten her to this place of like where she's happy and she's comfortable and we're like relieved, and now we're like, oh my gosh, we're going to go and upset this apple cart now again, like, but we know we've got to do it. So like, where on earth do we start with this process?
Yeah, so I think that's a question, moms. If you've experienced cow's milk protein allergy with your little one, especially the non-IG kind, you know that in the beginning the symptoms are quite hectic. It can be anything from just sleepless nights, a very unhappy baby, a baby arching their back, struggling with breastfeeding. Often the early hours in the morning are the really hard ones. And I know that was Kyla's definitely between kind of the dustbin truck hours between 2 and 6 in the morning were just sometimes quite horrific, a lot of sleepless nights. And so
Fun
it was
times.
really, really helpful to get the diagnosis and make some big decisions and hard decisions, to the point where Sammy actually had to stop breastfeeding altogether and had to put her baby onto an amino acid-based formula. Some of you who've walked this journey will know what we're talking about. And we decided to leave Kyla on that pure amino acid-based formula, which means it's got no allergens in it whatsoever, until we had introduced her to a big range of food. And as you can hear from Sammy, she really has been introduced to a wide range of food. And so it's helpful to do that on the amino acid-based formula, because then at least when she was reacting, we knew whether it was the food or what it was, and we didn't have another variable in. But thankfully, and it's normally the case with these little ones, is Kyla didn't have a reaction to any of the other allergens. So she managed with peanuts, she managed with tree nuts, she managed her eggs and her fish, and she managed her wheat. And so, yeah, she's really managed that group of allergens nicely, and they're all included in her diet and all a big part of her diet. So really where to start is, and where we're going to be, the journey we're going to be going on slowly with Kyla will be starting to step down her milk. So that's a good place to start introducing the cow's milk protein to her, is in a form of a formula, and changing it from an amino acid-based formula, slowly moving over to where we've got a milk protein. So we start introducing milk protein, but what we do is we call it a hydrolyzed milk protein. So it's still broken down, but it does come from milk protein. So currently the formula Kyla is on, her amino acids do not come anywhere near from milk protein. They come from plant proteins, and they're all produced from moss and different green plants to make up a complete protein in her amino acid-based formula. So that's just a little bit of science there for you, just to understand it. And basically what we're wanting to do now is we're wanting to take a formula that's got cow's milk protein that has been broken down into the components. So if you think of like a train with the different cabooses, what we are doing is those individual cabooses would be the amino acids. Now we are going to take, say, 3 amino acids from cow's milk protein, but not all of them. And we're going to have those and put that into her formula. And so normally the transition is taking a formula like that has got your broken down cow's milk protein, and scoop by scoop, bottle by bottle, slowly increasing the amount of the cow's milk protein to the amino acid. So we're not going to just switch her bottles. We're not going to just switch formula. We're going to do it very slowly. And the research has shown that load can play a role. So what I normally suggest to parents is that we do it 1 scoop for 1 bottle in total for the day. Then the next day you can go to 1 scoop in 2 bottles. And then you can go to 1 scoop in 3 bottles, and then 1 scoop in 4 bottles. So by now she might be on, I know Kyla hasn't been the biggest milk fan, but she could be on about 4 bottles of milk. And so you would do it slowly. So over a period of 4 days, you would eventually have 1 scoop per bottle. And then you can do that again, go to 2 scoops in 1 bottle, then 2 scoops in 2 bottles, 2 scoops in 3 bottles, and 2 scoops in 4 bottles. And when I'm saying you replace the scoops, so for example, if you have 120 mils and you're using 4 scoops of the amino acid formula, you would take 1 of those scoops of powder and you would replace it with a scoop of powder of the broken down cow's milk protein formula. So it's scoop for scoop. And so that is how you are going to slowly transition her. And if at any point you notice a bad night or you revert back to a symptom that you saw previously, you go back to the day before's amount.
Okay.
Because we don't want to necessarily go back to ground zero. So what you could, sometimes we find with these little ones is that you end up sitting on like 50-50 for a few weeks. And then you try and progress again. And then suddenly you can progress because the body's got used to it. Right. So it just takes time to do it. So we always will want to edge forward and move forward, but we're also happy to stop and just pause if we noticed that we were going a bit too fast or it was changing the way she was behaving. So at any point, we can always just go back a step and we can just stay at that step for a little bit longer. Okay. And so if you hear, as I'm speaking to Sammy and explaining to her how we're going to be doing it, and this is a real, you get in to see a real live consult happening here, you realize that it is important that you're doing this alongside your pediatric dietitian, your pediatric allergist, your pediatrician, because Sammy, as we do this, is going to be messaging me daily to say, Kath, it's going well today. We're on 3 bottles with 1 scoop each today. We're on 4 bottles with 1 scoop each today. Can we go to 2 scoops tomorrow? And then I'll ask her the question, how's Kyla doing? And she'll say, no change. She's doing great. Then I'll say, go for it. So it's a journey that we're going to walk together, not doing it on your own, not Googling it, how to do it. But this advice that we are giving you and guidance is so that you know what you are going to be doing. It's to give you a picture of where you are going to be moving forward. So does that give you a bit of an idea, Sammy, as to where you're going to be going the next few days?
Where to start, yeah. And I think it's so important, Kath, because, in my mind, I genuinely thought that, we'd almost just swap out the formulas, maybe alternate a bottle, like a full amino acid and then a full hydrolyzed, where I'm all for, baby steps and a gentle approach. So I like that, where you really starting with a very gentle introduction. And so you will definitely land up doing that. And then obviously that's very specific to Kyla's situation. But let's say we have a mom that's breastfeeding. What does she then do in that case, where she's not thinking of scoops and bottles and formulas and that? What would she do to be able to reintroduce cow's milk protein to her baby?
So again, like you as you hear, we're talking very specifically around the milk, and this is the place we like to introduce the cow's milk protein into. So whether it's in a broken down milk formula or a mom who's breastfeeding, who successfully removed all dairy from her diet. So she's taking in no dairy, which means that the baby's breast milk, the milk the baby's drinking, is getting no cow's milk protein. It means the place we're going to reintroduce the cow's milk back is into mom's diet, because the body has a very specific way of breaking down that cow's milk protein into the breast milk, similar to what the milk that you are going to be putting Kyla on. So just as you are going to be doing the broken down cow's milk protein, the breastfeeding mom, by taking in dairy, will be giving her baby broken down cow's milk protein as well. And so we would suggest for that mom to follow a milk ladder. So, and that is something that we can give you a link to. We will post it in the link below, and it will explain to you how to do a milk ladder. Again, just do it under the guidance and advice of your pediatrician or pediatric dietitian, so that they can guide you how to bring the milk back in, but we will just give you some suggestions as to how to do it. But the way it works generally is you start with something where the milk is in a product that's baked in the oven. So, for example, a rusk is normally my first one on the milk ladder, and that's because a rusk is baked for a long time in an extended heated period, and oven temperatures are always higher than stovetop temperatures. So we start normally with a rusk, then we'll go to a muffin, because a muffin is cooked shorter than a rusk. And so the milk will be, and you make sure the muffin has milk in it. And then once you've done the muffin, you'll go to, as an example, a chocolate chip cookie is one of my favorites. because that's normally cookies are baked very short, the chocolate in there, it's got a butter in there, so it's got a lot more dairy in it. And then from there, you're going to move onto the stove top. And so we normally do it then in a yogurt or a cheese. So it's not necessarily you making it, but it's been made above the oven temperature, above the stove. So yogurt and cheese will be the next go-to. And then from there, we'll go to a UHT treated milk. So it would be your long life milks normally. So not if you live on a farm, we would advocate you then boiling your milk. And if you don't live on a farm, just go to the shop and you get your UHT milk, and you'll include that in your diet. And that's done over a period of about 2 to 3 weeks. So you do kind of every few days you can add a new one. And if at any point your baby is going to react, then it's really important that you then if at any point your baby is going to react, sorry, Jay, just cut that. Sorry, my mom came up. If at any point your baby is going to react, then you just go back to what you were managing. So if you were managing rusks, no problem, then keep eating rusks. That's great. But then maybe don't go to the next level. Then in a week or two's time, go to the next level again. So just like we do with the formula, we do the same with the mom.
Okay. All right. Makes sense. And then just a last question to wrap it up. We focused on the milk now. When do you then start doing that milk ladder? Let's say in my instance with Kyla. So at what point in the milk journey would we say, okay, now we actually going to challenge her with solids?
Okay, so once you've got the broken down milk formula, so that we call it the hydrolyzed milk formula, once you've got her fully on that, we'll give her probably about 2 to 3 months on that, and where she's comfortable. And then we're going to put her onto a whole protein formula, because even a whole protein formula is still more easily tolerated than your cow's milk products out there.
Right.
So we want to get our body used to that. And then we find that a baby can adapt. Once they adapt to that quite quickly, within a month from accepting that, we can start the milk ladder with her then, which is normally closer then to a year.
Okay. Yeah. Amazing. I love how it works so systematically. And so you get this little bit of a roadmap. And I think that's going to be super helpful for parents listening today in terms of actually where and how do I introduce this cow's milk protein to their baby.
Yeah, so and that is always in my heart, that's how I practice and that's how I operate, is always trying to give parents a kind of, where are we going? Where are we heading? Where are we going to? And that's kind of both our hearts whenever we treat patients. And so I think the aim of this podcast today, and we chatted a bit about it before we put it together for everyone, and that's because we don't want to replace your dietitian, your doctor in this podcast, but what we want to do is empower you so that you can have the knowledge of where you are heading, have the roadmap, so that where you're heading. Too often I find patients are kind of groping around, not sure where to go, what to do, how much of this. I often get patients who come to me after their baby's been down in bottles and just not tolerating it. And just by taking a step back and going slower with it and introducing it slow, the baby suddenly starts tolerating the different milk, which they weren't seemingly tolerate. And then they end up staying on an amino acid-based formula up until 18 months, 2 years. And it's often just because of the way it was introduced. So we're hoping that this information, which is good science, it's good practice, will empower you to ask the right questions with your healthcare providers, that they can guide you. It shouldn't be a rush thing. It should be a slow, gradual process, but be consistent and don't be scared. It's a fun journey. It's exciting. And there is, as you said, light at the end of the tunnel.
There is.
And so moms and dads that have followed this journey, we'll keep you posted, and we'll definitely do a few more podcasts around this, and see how Kyla is doing on her journey, reintroducing cow's milk back into her diet. And we'll do a nice one even when we do the milk ladder with her, so that parents can know, what does that look like for a baby? So we spoke today about mom introducing the milk ladder, but it is a bit different for a baby. And we'll be talking about that with Kyla. So thanks everyone for joining us again. And thanks, Sammy, and for opening your home and your baby to us.
Of course. It's always great chatting and so helpful. Thanks so much.